Welcome to the Voices of Young People podcast, brought to you by Springtide Research Institute. In each episode, we hear directly from young people as they respond to our research and share about the issues impacting their lives. As sociologists and researchers, we see a new story unfolding for young people, one that moves beyond traditional institutional boundaries and requires careful attention to the inner and outer lives of emerging generations. At the intersection of being and becoming, it's the Voices of Young People.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Season 9 in the Voices of Young People podcast. My name is Marte Aboagye, and I'm the head of community engagement at Springtide Research Institute. I have two incredible Springtide ambassadors with me today. They are coming from different states, different time zones, different parts of the country, but they're both high school students. So we're really excited to have a conversation with young people who are thinking about civic engagement and politics as we're diving into that in our research and in our report this year from an age that is before voting age even. But they're still thinking deeply about what it means to be civically engaged. And I think there'll be some good stuff for everyone to take away from, for people to take young people, teenagers more seriously and not be dismissive about that they don't care, they don't know. So let's have these two fantastic SAP members, that's the shorthand for the Springtide Ambassadors Program, introduce themselves. I'll have you go first, Sunny.
Hi, my name is Sunny, and I am 17 years old. I live in Colorado, and I'm going into my senior year of high school. My pronouns are she, her, and my race is Asian. Some hobbies that I like would be cheerleading, baking, and rollerblading. In my free time, I like to go read outside or just take walks with my dog.
So lovely, Sunny. I'm always learning new things about our Springtide ambassadors in these conversations. Reading outside sounds so nice. I grew up in Colorado, so I'm already picturing like a nice picture scene while you're doing that on summer break as we're recording these conversations. But the fact that you also do cheerleading and baking and rollerblading, like you're very well-rounded.
Thank you.
I love rollerblading. For me, growing up in the 90s is like, that's what we did outside for fun. And I just don't see it as much around. So I'm very intrigued that that's one of the things you've always been about. It's so cool. Thank you for being with us, Sunny. Let's hear from Peyton.
Hi, my name is Peyton. I'm 15 years old and I live in Florida. I'm going into my sophomore year of high school and my pronouns are she, her. I am a Christian and some things that I enjoy are reading. I love to draw and spending time with my kids.
So wonderful, Peyton. Thank you for being a part of this conversation and the Springtide Ambassadors Program. You're a reader as well. Are you reading any good books this summer? Fiction, nonfiction?
I like fiction, but right now I've really been into classics. So I just finished Wuthering Heights, and now I'm on to Great Gatsby.
Great Gatsby.
Cool. Way to go. Honestly, I feel like some of those books people don't pick up till the end of high school or sometimes even undergrad in college. So that's really rad. You're getting into some of the classics. So two readers, two deep thinkers, thoughtful young people with us today. I would love to just get right into this conversation about young people's political engagement. As you both know, we have a brand new report that releases this fall called Cultivating Care, How and Why Young People Participate in Civic Life. We've been surveying thousands of young people, doing interviews with over 80 13 to 25-year-olds, all about politics and civic care. So those are the first two terms I want to ask you about. Peyton, when you hear the term politics, what are the first things that come to mind for you?
Yeah, so obviously some of the thoughts that I have are like voting and like being included in the community, but then like the feelings are more like the division, separation, and arguing of like, and like even just like the heaviness that's weighted with politics and then civic engagement and all the pressure put on that and then also like the follow through. And so, yeah.
Well said. And I like how you sort of thought about it in the feelings, what it leaves you with, as well as just the more like technical definition or activities associated with it. What about the term civic care? What would be the first words that come to mind for you?
A lot of like taking care of the community, like togetherness, but also kind of like, it's like, I know it shouldn't be left in the past, but it almost feels like forgotten. Like, so like it's not as much, I feel like it's not talked about as much as it should, but people put pressure on it. Like, but they don't talk about how to be civically in like how to do civic care.
So helpful to hear that. Sunny, what would you say? Politics. When I say that word, what comes to mind?
For me, the word politics, like what comes to mind is like legislature, like debates and like problems surrounding equality. Mainly because like I feel like politics can be like a wide range of topics that can impact our daily lives and how we think.
Totally. What about civic care? Does that strike a different chord?
Yeah, I think it's like the same thing as what Peyton was saying. Like I think of roles and like being engaged in the movements and like actions that impact civics and like politics in general. So.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we wanted to be really thoughtful about the title of the report based on what we heard from young people across the country, that politics did feel heavy, like the word that you threw out, Peyton, that it didn't always feel like it actually encompassed all the ways that young people were wanting to invest in the communities and places that they live. And so civic care, civic life felt like it actually was a more accurate framework to think about these things, because politics often does just feel like who's right, who's wrong, who's left, who's right, very divisive, I think was also another word I heard from y'all. So we're still talking about politics in the conversation, but we also want to expand it to think about civic engagement. And so on that note, do you consider yourself to be civically engaged? And if so, in what ways?
For me, I really like, I feel partially civically engaged, being that like in a very small amount, because I work for a small business in the community. So that contributes on a very small amount. Compared to many people, I'm not very civically engaged. But I think a lot of that can be impacted by your age. I can't drive yet, so I can't really go to any meetings or anything. It really would depend on what my parents are doing. And so that is an issue that like younger people would run into with civic engagement. So, yeah.
I love that you even thought about your work, as you were telling me about even before we hit record on the call, that like working for a small business in your community is part of being invested in your community. That's cool that you're thinking that broadly about it. What about you, Sunny? Do you feel like you're civically engaged?
I think I'm not as civically engaged as I want to be, mainly because I think it's really overwhelming when there's always like pressure to pick like one of two sides in politics. Like in the American politics system, like there's either the Democrats or the Republicans. Like I feel like your views have to match or align with one or the other, and it's always like really you don't have much freedom to like express your own feelings without having to adhere to like a certain side. So
yeah, the two-party system, the ways that it just can feel really limiting to like, I want to be more involved, but I don't exactly align with just a single camp in either direction is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
What about a specific issue? Is there a certain social or political issue that either of you are especially passionate about, and why? Or if you could even tell us a bit more, like when did you start caring about this? What prompted you to look into it or become invested in it? And does this issue matter to other people in your life?
For me, I'm really passionate about like health disparities within our communities. Mainly because I like recently learned so much more about it during my internship. So I have an internship with Denver Health, and yeah, we have like these seminar days where we get to learn about like ethics or like health disparities and inequalities and stuff. And so it kind of just broadened my view and opened my eyes to like how big of an issue it is that a lot of people aren't getting the affordable quality healthcare that they need. And like some factors they were talking about is like location, safe environments, if they have access to transportation or access to the education needed to get affordable healthcare. And so I think that's one of the issues that I'm super like passionate about, because it kind of like it's like a big topic that covers a lot of like political issues that are being talked about, like environmental issues, like pollution can lead to poor health, poor lung health, and like transportation, like issues in transportation. You don't have an easy way to get access to healthcare, and then education and like money wise economic issues. I think it's just all like encompassed in the healthcare disparities and like how communities, like poor communities, have it worse. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Wow. I mean, that is so cool that you've had an internship that goes to that extent to help you see the way these systems are interconnected. And like you perfectly said, transportation impacts it, where you live and the environment impacts it. Like these are all connected to these health disparities. I don't know if all high school students are getting to think critically in these ways. So that sounds like a really rad internship to get this exposure. And I love that you're already passionate about this. You know, you can't even quite vote, but you're like, this is an issue that I really want to see people think about more, want politicians to do something more about, and the ways you're already seeing it in your own setting, in your own community. Thank you so much. Peyton, what about you? Is there a social or political issue that you particularly care about?
Yeah, so a lot of it has to do with like immigration and like children in our communities. So first, like children are the most vulnerable. And then you throw in like immigrated children. Like it is so hard to become a US citizen here. And like it takes so long, and the system, I believe is broken, but it's not like an easy fix. Like here, let's sign a few new laws and fix it. But it's so like woven in, and there are so many laws that you'd have to change that I don't even know where we would begin to do that. I just know that there's like something wrong. But then also like, I think part of like the inspiration around that has been like, I'm a Christian, as I mentioned earlier. And so I believe in the Bible, and the Bible tells us to like be open to new people and to care for the most vulnerable. And like you were saying, the poor communities have it harder, and a lot of them are immigrants. And so if we as Christians aren't doing anything to help them, like, and then also it takes so long to then become a citizen. And so then we're trying to say, okay, we don't want any more immigrants. Let's close off our borders. That becomes a really like difficult subject just because of like, especially for me, because it's like we're Christians and so we're supposed to be open. That doesn't mean I want to encourage like illegal activities at all. Like that's wrong. But then maybe we need to change the laws, because it's so hard for people to come and start a new life. And maybe they're just trying to escape a dangerous situation. And so how are they supposed to get help in like United States, which is known as like the land of like dreams and like new becomings, when it's not open to anyone?
I totally agree. Like I have something to add.
Please, would love to hear it.
So for my experience, my internship is at this clinic, and this clinic, like they see a lot of really like they serve the they help the underserved communities in Colorado, and so they there's like the area surrounding it has a lot of like immigrants and non-English speakers, and so they would need like translators mainly to like help translate from Spanish to English. But what I'm trying to say is that like from my experience, I've seen so many like new immigrants that just got here from Mexico or Venezuela or any of those rural countries where they're trying to seek comfort and they don't have any health insurance. And they're trying to like get health insurance, but in like the right amount of care they need. And they just like don't have access to that because they aren't like, they're either here illegally or like aren't supported by the systems.
Yeah.
So they have a hard time like getting the right medications they need and the treatments that they need for their like illnesses like diabetes or anything like that. And so I feel like your problem definitely also connects with like health disparities and how
It does.
there's a huge inequality in healthcare too. So
Yeah, it does. I mean, I knew you both were passionate, but I love hearing you each describe the ways you're observing these issues in real time in your communities. Florida and Colorado are both states that are often mentioned in conversations about immigration and unaccompanied minors or undocumented folks. And so the fact that you're both trying to be really thoughtful about what it looks like to help people in your own communities or want laws to change, like Peyton said, the way the system is just not set up for it to work for people even. And then the way Sunny's like, this connects to the exact issue I'm talking about and all the things you're observing through this clinic. So well put, both of you. Thank you for the ways you're thinking about this so thoughtfully. I wish that a lot of other adults actually could think about the issues the ways that you all are, to see that these connect. It's sort of a domino effect in terms of the ways different systems and issues are impacted one by the other, and really wanting to see a different outcome for people, especially underserved communities or poor communities or folks who are newcomers to the country. So thank you both for caring, I would say. Do you think it's important for people in our society to care, to be civically engaged? Like, how important is it for people to volunteer in their community, to vote, maybe participate in activism, related to a particular cause? What are your thoughts about people broadly being civically engaged?
I think it's very important because as I was talking about earlier, like we want to change the laws, but that's not going to happen if people don't speak their minds. And so if you just sit back and you're like, someone else will change it, someone else will change it, someone else will change it, it's never going to get changed. Like even if you just like say one thing to one person, like, hey, is this right? Like, I don't know if this is how we should be doing this. Then maybe they could be like, I don't know, let's go talk to someone about it. And like, of course, we want to do everything respectfully and not just argue to argue and have conversations. But I think it's very important for individuals to be engaged, not just with voting, but by like talking about voting before it happens and informing people and being informed and working for them.
Awesome. Yeah, I can see the ways you're already wanting to be informed yourself, even several years before you can vote. Sunny, how do you feel about people at large being civically engaged?
I totally agree with Peyton. Like, I think it's also very important to be civically engaged. So when I turn 18, I will definitely be voting. And I think it's a really impactful way to have a voice in the policies being implemented, or like to have a say in society and how we can impact those choices made. Even if we think that it's not very significant what we're doing, I think in the long run, it can cause a big change. And if we're consistent with being civically engaged, I think that's what will make a cause for change.
Beautifully put. And that's so cool that you're already excited about registering and voting when you turn 18, not too far away. Yeah.
I know. It's crazy.
I love that you both are thinking about these issues before you're told you should or you have to. Like, you're clearly concerned citizens in high school, and people don't give credit often to young people like yourselves. I want to bring in a voice from another young person. So as I mentioned earlier, we did over 80 interviews in the qualitative part of our research alongside the surveys in our quantitative research. But the interviews just have so many interesting, important quotes in them. And so we've pulled some out that we're sharing in season 9 of the podcast. And I want to highlight one for you both now and just almost introduce them as they're like a third voice entering I guess a fourth voice, but another young person, a third young person's voice entering this conversation with us right now. And what are sort of your thoughts and reactions? So this is from Avery, who was 21 when they participated in an interview with someone from our research team. Avery said, "I gave a TED Talk when I was in high school about politics. I talked about how youth and youth advocacy matter. How even if you're not old enough to vote yet, you can still do stuff. Because I was 16 and I couldn't vote yet. So I was just talking about other stuff that you can do. And so, yeah, I'd say that I am probably a bit more politically active than your average Joe. But I think in part it's just my life, I guess. I just find it all really interesting. Some people love rocks. I just really like politics." So it kind of just makes me smile. Obviously, that's a pseudonym. Anyone who participates in our research interviews, we don't use their actual first name. You both as Springtide ambassadors get to be yourself on the record. But how would you respond to Avery and what Avery was talking about, reflecting on being 16 even?
Yeah. So Avery, like, just how she's like, politics isn't just voting, which is like a lot what I've been saying. Like, you don't have to just vote. You can help inform your parents by even doing like research, or you can help by protesting, like not aggressively. I'm not, but like peaceful protests, or writing letters. People don't do that anymore, really, but or like an email or something.
Totally.
Like your mayor, and be like, "Hey, this is an issue I'm really passionate about. Would you be available sometime so that I could set up a meeting with you so we could talk more about this? Because I think it's really important." Or you could just link like a paper in there and be like, "This is some of the things that I was wondering, if you were able to think about this a little bit," or even just like helping out your like a nonprofit or something like that's being civically engaged in your community. Like Sunny's internship, like her clinic that she's a part of, that's helping her be civically engaged and help the communities near her. So even just starting something like that, like people oftentimes link politics with voting, and that's all it is. But it's not politics. As you said earlier, it's such a broad subject. There's so much more to it that you can dig and uncover.
Well, you just gave such a good list, Peyton. I'm like, I want to write down all the ideas you gave: contacting elected officials, discussing it with your family, peacefully protesting. I mean, volunteering. Like, it was a solid list of things. Yes, you can still do before voting, and that isn't your own voting isn't your only way of being civically engaged. What would you want to add or respond to that quote from Avery as well, Sunny?
I totally agree with everything that Peyton and what Avery's statement was, because I think there are so many ways that you can have an impact on like just like your own community, that can like further like improve the society's like living. So I think like just picking out the trash, like picking up trash on the sidewalks, like
Absolutely.
doing anything for our environment, like having a little nonprofit, or organization or like participating in community run like local events can also be a way to just dip your toes in the water and get your feet wet to like being civically engaged.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yep. You're just adding to this great list. You know, that's why I like the quote from Avery because, and I don't know Avery's gender, but the way that Avery was like, oh, I think there's lots more you could do at 16, but they didn't spell it out what they probably said in their TED Talk. But the list that you both gave, including caring for the environment, including connecting with different community organizations, wanting to just say, hey, we can make things better. We can talk about these issues and we can contribute. I think other generations could do more of that instead of being like, well, that's not my trash, I'm going to walk by it. But be like, okay, I did not leave that there, but if I pick it up, it's going to make it that much better for someone else. So when we see ourselves more connected to one another and wanting to support instead of have an attitude of like, not my problem, I think our communities and our neighborhoods and our cities and our country fares that much better with all the ideas you're both describing. So lovely. Thank you for that. I'm curious if we could talk a little bit about who's influenced you when it comes to how you view your own civic engagement or really your own political thoughts and ideas. Is it people or is it, things you read, something else? What are those sources or people that have impacted your political views and beliefs or values?
For me, I think it's definitely my family and the mentors that I have for my internship, my friends, my peers, and definitely social media because it's like a huge part of any like young person's life, I'm guessing. And so like my family has definitely shaped a lot of my beliefs and mainly because I trust them a lot and I like agree most of the time with what they're saying and like their own beliefs about politics. However, I think like I had a teacher last year and he was the teacher of this class called Theory of Knowledge. And it's kind of like a class where you're like thinking in different ways. It's like a philosophy class.
Cool.
And my teacher always like taught me to consider the other point of view of arguments and like acknowledge the other side and like put yourself in their shoes basically and like try to understand what they also believe in. We were talking about how like there's people that believe in how the earth is flat and there's people who believe the earth is round. And we were trying to like justify each side and not like have like a implicit bias towards one or the other and just to be open about everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Again, very cool that you're getting this type of philosophy-based class in high school and like being able to give skills of how to see things from another point of view or how to have a productive conversation with someone who has a different angle. But thank you also for mentioning family and social media as some of the key influencers. What about you, Peyton?
So the greatest influence on me, without a doubt, would be my parents. They're very like people who want to talk about it. They aren't gonna like shut me down and be like, "That's a terrible idea. We can't talk about that." But they'll be like, "Okay, let's think about this. How would this be impacted with the Bible? How would it be impacted by these laws? What do you think about this?" And they'll more like treat me like an adult in the conversation instead of being like, "Oh, you're only 15. You don't know what you're talking about. It's okay. Come back to me when you know stuff." Like, but then at the same time, they're also like open to change instead of just being like, "Nope, this is how it's been for the last 45 years. It's going to stay this way forever," because our world is changing. And so, it's important to learn to adapt. And then, another person who has impacted me would be, one of my teachers. She taught civics and law this past year for me, and geography.
Cool.
And she was just a very open person. She's also a Christian, but she was just a very open person to like talk to politics about. And she'd always leave her door open. She's like, anytime you have a question, come and ask me. I'll argue it with you, or I'll be like, I'll talk about it with you, you know, like I'll walk you through what I think about it and stuff. And so it was just kind of fun. I spent a lot of days after school in there, like, picking her brain or just hanging out, you know. But it was really like interesting to hear a different perspective. But another like thing that you listed on there as like an example was friends and social media. Personally, I don't think those have impacted me.
Okay.
I wasn't allowed to get social media until a year or two ago, so I haven't had it for very long. And even then, I deleted most of my social media recently because I'm trying to be very mindful of like, I don't want it to shape my brain and how I'm thinking. And then also I don't want it to just like take over my time and my life. And so, yeah,
that's real. I feel that. I feel the ways that social media pulls you in at all different ages. It does it to everyone. So you both mentioned teachers. I find that really cool that you've both had educators as well as family members that aren't dismissive, that they take your ideas seriously, and that there's you listed the qualities, that there's an openness that people can, that they'll invite questions and discussions instead of just saying, you're too young to understand this issue. So I want to branch into that a little bit more. Do you feel like there's certain things that adults can do to make you feel like, oh yeah, this is an open space to discuss political issues? Or you could also say the opposite. Are there telltale signs of someone's being dismissive about your ideas and participating in a political discussion?
So for me, something like that a trusted adult could do to make it feel more open would be just to like listen. Like that's, I feel like one of the qualities we both mentioned was that they didn't shut us down. They listened and they made sure that they know like, hey, your opinion was heard. I don't necessarily have to agree, but thank you for sharing, you know, instead of just being like, oh, that's stupid, moving on. And so like, again, that's one of the telltale signs, like, I'm not going to talk to you about this. Like that there are some people that you just can't talk to about politics because they aren't looking for change, and it's not going to be a conversation. It's going to be more of a lecture. And so it's good to hear their opinions, but it's hard to have a conversation about politics when you don't necessarily agree. And then you try to say, okay, that's neat. I don't know if I agree, but tell me why. And then they're like, why don't you agree with me? And then maybe they'll blow up, or they'll just like stop talking about it in general. And you're like, sorry, I don't know what I did really.
Yeah.
And so you just have to, politics are such a sensitive subject that sometimes it's best to just steer clear of them in general, especially with older generations, like you said, unless, like, that's my typical rule with older generations. Like, unless I know them and unless they've told me like, hey, I'm free to talk to this with you, then I'm going to try not to bring it up because I don't want to harm a relationship that is fine until I bring up politics. So
fair points. Yeah. Thank you. What are your thoughts in terms of talking with folks from other generations, or what trusted adults can do to show you, hey, this is a place where we can have a open conversation?
Well, I think for me at family gatherings, I used to like just listen in on the conversations, and really, I didn't want to bring up my points because I was like scared that they thought I wasn't educated enough to be talking about these things, or like I didn't like know enough about the topic. So I feel like if I am talking to an adult or older generations about politics, I would want them to obviously respect my own opinions and like listen intently on what I have to say, instead of like just forcing their ideas or beliefs onto me. And I think a specific example that I can think of was when I was like talking about the issue of gun violence, because gun violence has been a huge issue, especially among like teenagers and like high schools, like school shootings, this like past years, technically. So like some of my family members believe that, oh, we shouldn't like totally ban guns because we need them for self-defense. Like if we take the guns away, the bad people are still just gonna like be bad and find other weapons. But do we really need like kids or like people who aren't licensed to have access to assault rifles who can take away the lives of so many people out of school? Like I think at that point I was just so like angry that they wouldn't like hear me out or just like listen to me and like why and see why my point of view and opinion is important too, because it directly impacts the people in my lives and like the people who are close to me. So
yeah. And you're a student. You are a high school student.
Exactly.
You're an expert.
Like
so here
I have fear for that. Like every time I go to school, like is this gonna be it? Like yeah.
Like I want adults to take students very seriously when they're talking about any number of issues, but especially something that could directly impact an environment that you're in every day. So that's tough when you're in those family spaces and there's not always an environment where you feel like you're being heard or I know I've been there. I know many people have been there where they're like, I want to have this conversation, but the environment isn't always conducive to that. So I hope mentors, parents, aunties, uncles, trusted adult figures listening in on this podcast will think hard about what sort of posture they're going into these settings and conversations with and what they can do to make young people feel heard and respected. And we've heard a little bit about religion, but, you know, in our SAT meetings, we end up talking about spirituality and the ways young people think about faith. Do you feel like your own spirituality or religion or faith or worldview impacts your politics?
I think it's impacted me a lot. Like in the Bible, it says that we need to have honor and like we need to respect those in charge. And that doesn't mean we have to agree with everything they've said. And obviously, if they're saying something against the Bible, then that's a different story. But for people who are like, when one of the presidents who aren't in their party gets voted and they're like, well, that's not my president, I'm not going to listen to them. I'm like, okay, but you claim to be a Christian. So like, it's really conflicting to me to be like, okay, you're a Christian, and so we're part of the same group, but then how can we have such different views on this? And a lot of it goes back to like the interpretation of the Bible, and then also like we sin, everyone does, and so it's like just part of being human. But but that a lot has impacted me in being like more mindful towards politics, because the Bible also doesn't tell us then to just like ignore the government and be like, okay, who cares? We'll just follow whatever they say, but to think and be wise. So yeah.
Thanks, Peyton. What about you, Sunny?
For me, I'm not nearly as spiritual or like religious as my family members, I'd say. Mainly because like I know my grandma is super religious. Well, not super religious, but my grandma and my mom are both partly religious, like Lutherans. But I've never like wanted to like go to church with them. So I usually just stay home. But I think it's like me not being as spiritual as some other people makes me believe in things that are more logical or factual. So like in like specific political issues, I would like need like solid evidence for me to justify my viewpoint or my belief. So
thanks. Really helpful to hear those perspectives from both of you. Do you feel more hopeful or fearful about the direction of society these days?
That's a good question. For me, I'm kind of like halfway, because for a hopeful part of how our society is going is that I've noticed that, like, just for me myself, like, a lot of young people are starting to speak up more, especially in the past like 4 years since COVID. I feel like there's been a lot of protests surrounding like equality, like Black Lives Matter and like LGBTQ rights, and how many of those are headed by like young people, which is an amazing thing. But I also like am a little fearful because like recent like political debates, like this two-party system where we have to pick one or the other, and it's not like my views don't align with one or the other, and they're both kind of equally not as great candidates. So it's just like making me think a lot about our political system, and like how it can be like hopeful in a way that we can speak up, but not like fearful that like this two-party system is still super, super oppressive, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I get where it's a mixed feeling. And you don't have to pick a single camp, but I appreciate the ways you articulated that. Peyton, how would you answer?
A lot of me agrees with Sunny. Like, yeah, that was a lot of what I had thought. I was like, well, it seems to be going kind of both directions. Like, I don't know how I feel about the two-party system anymore. It's a little bit like trying to fit everyone into one box or the other. And that's really hard to do, especially in a democracy. And then it's also like hopeful because, hey, we're making progress. Good things are happening. But then, like, at the same time, as I said before, I'm going to keep saying I'm a Christian. But, like, the Bible calls us to be the hope of the world. And so, like, trying to do that in the best possible way in a sinful, dark world and a broken world is really hard. But you want to, be the light in the world. And so going into that with all of that in mind, it's, a mixed feeling being like, okay, we're going to be trying to be hopeful. Then at the same time being like, okay, let's see what's out there.
Yes. I really hear that. And I feel that from both of y'all. I have one last question. So if you could give a message to what people should know when it comes to young people and politics, what would you want them to hear?
I think from this conversation alone, you can see like we want to talk about it. We don't want it to be a forbidden subject.
Yeah.
But if it's not going to be a forbidden subject, then we need to be heard, and not just like heard and then be like, okay, thanks. Now listen to the adults talk, but instead listen to, and then be more open to change. Like, it's hard, but change comes and there's nothing you can do about it. And so the best way to deal with change is to change.
Yeah, exactly what Peyton's saying. Like, I think young people, we are especially willing to be part of the conversation now, and we want to make our stand and fight for what we believe in, especially like during this whole, like all the political issues surrounding the world right now. Like, I think we have our strengths and we want to have a lasting impact. So we would like to be looped in. And even if it's just playing a small role in doing like minimal things, I think in the long run, it can still have a large impact. And even getting informed and researching more about topics that we're interested in or passionate about, it's still like young people still want to be engaged and be part of the conversation.
Well put. It's great last word. Thank you, Peyton. Thank you, Sunny. Thank you both so much for sharing your thoughts here today. We will have more episodes coming, so stay tuned for the next one dropping. Visit springtideresearch.org to hear more voices of young people and to learn about the latest research and resources available, along with Cultivating Care, how and why young people participate in civic life. Springtide Research Institute is dedicated to listening to young people and sharing critical research and actionable insights from what we learn. Visit our website to find ways to support our work and discover ways that we can support yours. You can find us and follow us on social media at We Are Springtide. If you're enjoying the Voices of Young People podcast, we invite you to rate it, review it, and share it with a friend. Today's show was produced by Marte Aboagye. Audio was mixed by Andy Palmer. Opening description from Fardosa Dahir, and original music by Christian Unthank. Special thanks to the 12 guests featured in Season 9 and to all the young people whose perspectives and insights make our research possible. Thanks for listening.